Looks like this tube is just held in there with some O-rings, and I think it is, because it doesn't look like it's bolted into anything. I'll make sure I get some new O-rings back on it when I put it in there. This cover should just pop off. I'm just gonna gently pry on it. Looks like I've got everything loosened up. At least it's moving a little bit back here. Just being gentle with it. I'm not yanking on anything real hard. Keep prying this out a little bit. That seemed to work pretty well. There it goes. And then just as I thought, it was an O-ring right here on there that holds that into there. And somebody had used some gasket sealer in there, and I might do the same just for some insurance. But there is the gasket that was leaking right there. And you can see the water all around here. This is where the problem was. So let's go ahead and get that back going. Looks like somebody's been in here because the factory gasket is all one piece. We're going to put a new one of these on there too. This goes around all of this. Alright, you can see here I've got the cover off, and I went ahead and cleaned up all the mating surfaces, like this area right here. This is where the leak was. I don't know if you can see all the rust right there. That's where the leak was. What I found when I took the cover off was somebody had been in here before repairing something. I'm not sure what, but they had it apart and they never put a gasket back inside of the timing cover and the block there. So they just I don't know if they just put gray silicone sealant or what, but the tolerances on this motor, you know, when I first started working on it, I was kind of like, man, I don't know about this thing. It's kind of different, but I see where they're going with it, Perkins wise. I see where they're going with it. The tolerances are exact, and you can see down here I cleaned this up real good, and I put a new O-ring around there. I think when somebody took this apart, they just reused all the gaskets that came off of it for whatever reason. The gasket kit isn't that expensive, and I'm going to show you the gasket kit I got down below. Look for the links down in the description there. I'll put something down there that'll point you in the right direction if you have to work on one of these. So I cleaned up all that the best I could. Those bolts will come back out. I just didn't want to lose them, so I stuck them back in there. And you can see everything's kind of cleaned up. I went ahead and cleaned up inside of that tube right there where the coolant line goes. And so I think I'm ready. I'm going to take you over here and show you the timing cover and show you what I'm going to do with that. So here's the timing cover here, and this is the gasket surface that I was showing you over on the block, the one that did not have a gasket in it. This is the actual gasket that Perkins provides for this. It has a nice set of ears here that hold it in place while you place the cover, you know, onto the block. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some of this Indian head gasket shellac. Hopefully you can see that. You know, it's kind of bright out today, which is nice. It's middle of winter, so it's nice and warm. But I'm going to use this shellac compound, Indian head gasket shellac compound. It says it's antifreeze resistant, let's see here, resists water, steam, petroleum products, and antifreeze. So I've used this in the past with very good success, and so that's good. So I'm going to put a coat of this on both sides of the gasket, this side, and this surface, and the other surface over on the block. So let's go ahead and get that going, and then this gets a new gasket here too, and then this is the back side of where that fuel pump mounts up, where the O-ring, so I cleaned that surface up too, so that should be good to go. And the kit I got, which was really nice, here's the kit. It comes in this, you know, I'm not going to use all of this. There's a water pump gasket, oil pan gasket, I don't need that, and then I will need this big gasket right here. This is the cover that goes on the timing case. So let's go ahead and get this in here. I'm going to reuse this seal. Everything looks great with that. I'm just going to apply a light coat of grease in here. I've wiped all this down to kind of clean that up. That's that other gasket in there that I'll show you when I get that out. And I've cleaned up these surfaces, and I went ahead and put a new, this had a new O-ring. It came with the kit Hopefully you can see that. Yep, there we go. So this has a new O-ring that came with the kit for this little connector. So I went ahead and put that on there, and everything else looked okay. So there's where the other gasket goes on, which we'll get that on once we get the case onto the block. So let's go ahead and get this prepared and ready to go back on, because we're ready. So here's the gasket that goes in this area here behind the crank gear, or the cam gear, and this other one here. This only goes on one way, so you can't really get this backwards, which that's kind of nice. Like I said, Perkins, the way they kind of are doing their gaskets are a little bit different on this. A little bit different than your conventional automotive engine. Maybe it's an industrial thing. I really don't know, but you can see, not backwards. This has these little alignment pins on here. What these are for, see those? Yeah. They're for sliding this into the block, and this will hold it in place in the block when you get ready to put this case back on here. But this one here is ready to go. So how we're going to get this ready, I don't want this ever to leak again, because this is a big job to get this thing apart. Hours. I mean, I've spent hours working on this thing, which is fine. It's still cheaper than taking it to the shop. So the applicator here that comes out of the shellac bottle looks like this. It's a little foam, a little foam applicator. And what I'm going to do is just lightly paint around this surface here. And I think what happened when the other mechanic, or whoever, if they want to call themselves a mechanic, I guess they could, they put this together, they put this gasket in place, but they didn't put anything here. So what that left was a mating surface that had a gap in it. And that RTV, if that's what they used, wasn't enough to fill that gap and hold the pressure back, because it just blew out. And it was leaking when we got it, but hey, lessons learned, right? I guess, whatever. I don't mind fixing things, but this is pretty deep. But I wasn't willing to pay the shop for them to fix it, so I decided to just do it myself. Whatever. Anyway, so here we are working on equipment. So I'm going to slide that on there like that. And you're supposed to allow, and that's what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to let these sit for a few minutes. They're supposed to tack up. And I'm going to set it down right here where it can get dirty. Wipe this mess up right here. Easily cleaned up. It's not like it's, terrible or anything. Just wipe it up there with a rag, no problem. And that doesn't even matter, but I like to keep it clean. So I'm going to let everything tack up real good. And then we're going to slide that gasket onto this housing. So let's do that. I'm going to give it about 5 minutes or so. It's kind of cool out, but the sun's shining, so it shouldn't take very long. Alright, you can see that the surface has gotten tacky. It's just kind of sticking to each other, or sticking to my finger really well. So this should be ready. So after about 5 minutes, I've let everything tack up real well, and now I can go ahead and place this gasket onto this housing, just like that. And that is great. That looks wonderful. So I warmed up the shellac a little bit in my pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and put another layer on here, on this side of it, and then I'm going to go over to the block of the engine and put some on that too. Alright, I got all the surfaces prepped and ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and put the timing case back on there. What I'm doing is trying to feed this tube back into the block for the coolant. There it goes. I don't know if you saw it kind of just fall up in there, but looks like everything's lining up perfectly. So now that I've got the cover in place, I went ahead and torqued all these bolts down, and I'll put a link to where I got the torque specs from for this there, if I can find it. I found it one time I'll see if I can find it again. If I can't, you can contact Perkins or whatever and find out what they are. So what I've got is I made sure that the crank is still lined up with the block exactly where I needed it to be. These have not moved since I've taken them apart. So next up is putting this gear back in position in this spot. And that is this one, the one with the 3 bolts on it. So what I'm going to do is get this halfway where I need it to be, which is in this orientation like this. And I've got some alignment marks on here so I'll know exactly where they need to be, where exactly this needs to be in relation to the crank. So let me get all that straight and I'll get right back with you. But you need to do that before you go any further, because you don't want to get all this at a time. Alright, I got all the gears back in place there. You can see they're all lined up there. And what I started off with was putting the middle gear halfway back where I had left it, because that was the last one I had taken out. And I got everything lined up with the alignment marks that I made. And again, I'm going to stress, you can't do that enough. Make more marks than you think you need to get everything back together right. And then I had to kind of twist it a little bit to get everything to line up correctly, because of the gears are cut, I guess helically cut gears anyway, so they're at an angle, so I had to kind of compensate for that to get the one on the left there for the camshaft lined up properly with the gears over here. So I had to kind of, you know, advance it, retard it, whatever I needed to do to get it to kind of halfway line up. So that's what I did. And so I got it all back together, and all the marks line up, everything is back together. And so that's good. So then I just this is 13 millimeter, 15 millimeter, and 22 millimeter here, and I put a little Loctite, just a little bit of blue Loctite on all the threads before I put it back together, just to make sure, you know, they didn't back out. I'd hate for something to come apart in here and then that'd be catastrophic. So I got the pulley back on down there. I don't know if you can see that. Yep, you can see that. And those were 13 millimeter 12 point. Went ahead and got that back on there, and I got everything torqued down, so we're good to go. So next up is we're going to get this cover put on here, and so that way I can go ahead and start it up. I might just, you know, start it up, make sure I've got all the timing right and everything, just a sanity check, I guess, and just to make sure I got everything back together right. So I'm going to do that, and let's go ahead and get that cover on there.